That was a live briefing. In fact, the briefing is still going on with General Norman Schwarzkopf, the commander of the Allied forces in the Gulf, a general briefing on the state of the war. But today's main story concerns the battle for the Saudi oil town of Khafji. We may go back to General Schwarzkopf as his briefing turns to that battle. But let's stick with the battle with this report just to hand from the BBC's Brian Barron.
This empty border town, pictured yesterday, seems a meagre prize, but the Iraqi army appears to have surprised the Allies today by occupying its centre. In the process, they have reportedly paid a heavy price, losing hundreds dead. The Allies have taken at least 20 Iraqi prisoners and destroyed 5 tanks. Between 8 and 10 American Marines have been killed. Reports early this afternoon suggested that at least 50 Iraqi troops, supported by armoured carriers, were still in the town. However, their escape route to the Kuwait border, 10 miles away, was said to be cut off. The 45,000 residents of Khafji were evacuated by the Saudi authorities about 2 weeks ago. That followed Iraqi shelling of Khafji's oil terminal, which was set ablaze. One result of that initial Iraqi attack on Khafji was an oil slick which has decimated wildlife along this stretch of the Gulf. Since then, American warplanes have been repeatedly in action against Iraqi positions. Today's attacks were said to have been repulsed by American Marine Harriers and helicopter gunships. Tonight, both sides are claiming success in this, the most ferocious ground fighting to date. The Iraqis say that by penetrating what they call the evil kingdom, they won an outstanding victory. The fact is, there were only small numbers of Saudi and Qatari troops between the border and the town. These attacks amount to a carefully timed gesture of defiance by Saddam Hussein as the Allies prepare their own massive land onslaught. In the last few minutes, we've received these pictures of the battle for Khafji today. American Marine 155mm howitzers shelling Iraqi positions around the town. It's the Marines who've been the blocking force to the Iraqi advance. Latest reports are that the fighting is continuing.
That report just received from the BBC's Brian Barron. Now we're going back to the briefing being given at the moment by the commander of the Allied forces in the Gulf, General Norman Schwarzkopf.
On island up into Qasr. Occasionally they get out into Kuwaiti waters, but when they do, we certainly go after them. I would tell you even today, British Lynx helicopters, Saudi Dolphins, and U.S. Army helicopters attacked 6 patrol boats. The results was 4 sunk. This morning, we were also attacking some patrol craft, and at last report, we had damaged 3 or 4. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the readiness of our amphibious forces. We have very large amphibious forces over here, and they are continually training and ready to do the job when called upon to do so. And of course, the maritime interception operations are still continuing with more than 7,000 intercepts to date. When you talk about Navy, you think about water, and around here lately, when you think about water, you've thought about oil. So I'm going to talk a little bit about oil for a minute. Next. You remember the pictures I showed you the last time I was here? This was the original oil spill before we took any military action against the manifolds. I told you we weren't sure what we had done, but the next day, this was the result where we'd already diminished. I am very proud to tell you that yesterday, this is the result of that area. Blue water, no more oil slick out there, and the United States military is very proud of any role we may have played in doing away with this ecological act of terrorism. Let me now turn to ground operations. U.S. and coalition forces are defending Saudi Arabia, and we're also repositioning. Until last night, there were no major ground engagements, although the Marines in their assigned sector were routinely receiving sporadic rocket and artillery fire. And in their effort to reduce that, on at least 3 occasions last week, the United States Marine Corps conducted artillery raids on enemy frontline units. Night before last, they were particularly effective and reported severe damage on the enemy and great loss of life. I'd like now to sort of report what's been going on last night and today. If you look at this position here, yesterday evening, we had an attack in that area by what was estimated to be an Iraqi mechanized battalion. It crossed the border. It was engaged by a Marine Light Armored Infantry Battalion and Tactical Air. Result, 10 Iraqi tanks destroyed, 4 enemy prisoners of POW, and the Marines lost 2 light armored vehicles. At point number 2, right here, later on that same evening, another Iraqi battalion came across the border. These were again engaged by AC-130s and Cobras. We destroyed 4 tanks and 13 vehicles. We have had reports that the Iraqis went into, number 2 right here, that the Iraqis did go into Al-Khafji. Of course, as you know, Al-Khafji has been abandoned and deserted since the very first day of Desert Storm, so there was no one there. At position number 3, in the very early morning, Iraqi tanks and infantry again crossed the border. This time they were initially engaged by the Saudi Arabian National Guard, and then Marine TAC Air engaged them and the enemy withdrew. Early this morning, 40 more Iraqi tanks crossed the border again at the same place they came across before, right over here. They were once again engaged by the Marine Light Armored Infantry. This time the results were 10 Iraqi tanks destroyed. They captured 9 enemy prisoners of war. At the present time, we have reports that the Saudis are moving forces into Al-Khafji to eject any Iraqi that may be in that area. Now this, please, is a very preliminary report because, as you can imagine, fighting all night long and then fighting again today, we don't have final results. But as a very preliminary report, the total losses to date, the pilots are reporting rather sensational losses of 41 tanks destroyed, 12 vehicles destroyed, 3 frogs destroyed, 7 armored personnel carrier destroyed, 130 millimeter destroyed, 4 artillery positions destroyed, 6 bunker positions destroyed. We have confirmed figures of 24 Iraqi tanks destroyed and 13 other vehicles destroyed. The Marines lost 2 light armored vehicles. Unfortunately, I'm very sad that I have to report to you that they lost 12 KIA in that engagement and 2 WIA. These are the first casualties of any ground conflict, or first KIA of any ground conflict. Now I want to turn finally to Scuds, another subject that has been prominent in everyone's mind. As I told you before, I think Scuds are militarily insignificant. I saw one the other day, and after seeing one the other day, I got to tell you, it's even more militarily insignificant than I thought it really was. I went out and inspected one of the Scud bodies. As far as accuracy is concerned, it certainly is militarily insignificant, but it is a terror weapon. And it's a terror weapon that's been targeted against civilian population centers, and that makes it important. So let's talk about Scuds for a minute. As you know, the total Scud launches have been 53, 27 against Saudi Arabia and 26 against Israel. I think it's significant, however, that in the first week they launched 35, and the second week they launched 18. I like to feel that we're doing some good. We've flown almost 1,500 sorties against the Scuds to date, and the Patriot success, of course, is known to everyone. It's 100% so far of 33 engaged. There have been 33 destroyed. This chart also shows the sectors from which the Scuds are fired when they go after the major population centers. It's a very, very large area, but despite the size of the area, we have managed to destroy all of their fixed sites, 30 fixed sites, and we're quite confident of that. We've destroyed all of their major missile production facilities, and the pilots have reported to us more than 50 kills to date. But of course, again, we don't confirm that until we have hard information. I told you earlier that we have now declared air supremacy. By declaring air supremacy, that gives us the ability to use some tactics, some new tactics, that we're not able to use before. I'm going to have General Glosson come back up here and show you some film that I think will speak for itself.